briefing to discuss what are the implications of Brexit on talent management. So we've got Tom Gosling, a partner from PwC, Stefan Thoma, former senior HR figure at Google globally. And we also have Professor Gareth Thomas, who is a well-respected management expert, author and consultant on HR and talent management issues.
Brexit is a massively important issue for our clients. Very happy to contribute this morning.
It's going to be a great session where we can share different ideas and different experiences.
This will be a lively audience. It's a good panel, I think. There'll be intelligent questions, so I'm really looking forward to the debate.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you very much for coming to this briefing on the talent management implications of Brexit, or as the editor of the Financial Times likes to call it, the biggest demerger in post-war history. So we're lucky to have a stellar panel this morning to analyse the impact on talent management of all these political, legal and regulatory uncertainties. Tom, please lead the way.
What are HR doing? Back in June, there was a whole flurry of activity after the vote. People sort of panicked about Brexit. Then two things happened. People realised that actually nothing had immediately changed, and secondly, they were about to go on holiday. And I think those two things together caused sort of Brexit thinking to get kind of pushed into the autumn. But even now, I think the activity that we're seeing from HR is perhaps a little bit more limited than I would argue that it should be. I think most organisations are assuming, probably correctly, that the issue is not going to be high-skilled labour. Probably by hook or by crook. There will be some ability, as now, to get high-skilled labour into the country. It might be more painful, it might be slower, you might bump up against quota limits once in a while. But actually, for many organisations, the bigger issue is going to be unskilled labour, particularly those organisations who rely on recruiting from a pool of people who just come to the UK without work and are available for employment. And so massive implications, I think, for recruitment processes, talent sourcing. But my biggest appeal to HR really is to get involved in the scenario planning that is going on in organisations and influence. HR always complains about not having a seat at the table, but I have to say I'm seeing HR as being too passive in this debate and awaiting instruction from on high within their organisations rather than rolling sleeves up now and getting involved in the debate today.
Stefan, could you elaborate a little bit on the communication challenges that HR teams face in what's still a very uncertain environment?
Yeah, it's a wonderful opportunity for the HR function to get on the front foot and to really, we talk about business partnering, we talk about being strategic, but I think one has to be in the face of the business and the stakeholders and the senior folks in the organisation to almost be the kind of pain in the neck, to be the nagging partner that reminds these executives, the senior folks in organizations, that they have to take these things seriously, that they have to look after their critical talent, they have to reassure them amidst all of this uncertainty. Of course, we can do contingency planning, but I think amidst all of that, I think we have a role and a duty to keep information flows open, to keep communication channel open. But just the very nature that this is on the agenda of the senior stakeholders and management in the business is a positive message for employees. I worry that we're not doing enough.
Gareth, could you add your take on the broader talent management debate that this is feeding into?
The day after the referendum result, I tried to persuade my family that we should emigrate. So my plan was to spend the winters in Madrid and the summers in Ireland. My wife said it was too far from White Hart Lane. I'd just like to put the issues about talent and engagement in a sort of slightly broader context, because I think from an HR or OD perspective, we can get a little bit caught up with some of these very important kind of mechanical issues, but a couple more background factors, which I think are in a sense bigger than Brexit. One, we have very low trust indices in the Western world. People don't trust bankers, auditors, lawyers, politicians, and business leaders. People are in danger of falling out of love with organizations. That's a real problem if you're in the business of attracting and retaining talent. Second observation, HR has been obsessed with engagement for well, you probably know more than I do, Tom, 15 years? It's been number one on the HR agenda, engagement. Guess what? Engagement scores viewed globally are stubbornly low. About 40% of people are unengaged with their work or disengaged with their work. Now, just think about that as a productivity issue for a moment. It's huge. And now think about it in terms of human misery. Whether we like it or not, we'll spend the bulk of our adult waking lives at work. Most people find that an alienating experience. So that's a huge agenda for HR. How do we build organizations that people really want to come and express themselves in and do their best work? That's a massive agenda.
Just to build on the wonderful context that you laid out there, and this Brexit stuff generally seen in a climate of kind of doom and gloom and kind of negativity, or at least kind of ambivalence at best. Actually, I think that's completely wrong for HR. If we can reframe this into a positive, because actually this creates a wonderful opportunity for HR to really start to drive some of this stuff. It's a kind of a provocation, a call to action, and I think if only as an HR profession, we can find the ways of doing that now with our executive teams. So I worry a little bit that we see this too negatively in this function. I think it's a really positive opportunity for us.
So we've set up quite a few of the big themes here. With that, if you'd like to put your hand up, if you have a point you'd like to make, an anecdote from the coalface, or a question you'd like to raise, please.
The question I have is around lobbying, and what's the opportunity for the HR function to lobby the process going forward, and help us also move the discussion more to facts than emotive, because it looks like the decision was, at least as an observer, more emotive than fact-based. I am hoping that we move more to a fact-based, decision in terms of where we are.
So the first thing is get your point of view on the key issues, then force your way into those discussions that are happening at the firm level. But then firms themselves are, as I say, struggling to understand exactly how to feed that in through trade bodies and what have you, and getting airtime with the right people is very challenging. But now is the moment, because as we've seen with recent announcements, decisions are getting made now in practice about our Brexit strategy.
I think organizations can shape this more than they think, especially big ones, actually. And for those of us who are really interested in, I don't like this phrase, but the talent agenda. But let's talk about having the right people doing the right things at the right time, because that's what it seems to me to be really about. Realizes that the labour market is global. And we need to help politicians come to understand that that's how you build great organizations. And getting people to come to understand that if they want our organizations to be world class, then we have to look at a world class talent pool. And I would urge you to be bold. And we're going to drive a really radical agenda about creating organizations where people can do their best work.
Do we have any examples from the floor? Anyone willing to kind of share what's been happening at the coalface at their organisation?
There are things that we can be doing in HR. I'm already looking at building a work permit unit in my team. Well, it'll take me 2 years to get that kind of skill. I can't wait until it happens and go, oh gosh, I've got 12,000, 14,000 people in the UK, and half of those people I can't employ anymore.
Can I just build on that? Because I think that's a really important point. By doing that work now, I mean, you have a wonderful opportunity to add value to your business. And maybe you'll need to evolve it and change your thinking, but still you'll be ahead of your competitors.
I think your view about being positive is really, really important, because now I can actually recruit from anywhere. Now I don't have to think, oh, it's okay, they can come from Europe. I can say, it's okay, they can come from Australia, they can come from... I can actually now look at the world in a slightly different way. And so I can be positive about the change, and I think that's really important.
Getting leadership in the right headspace around Brexit, I think, is critical, and HR needs to play a role in calling out if they're seeing that not happening and help facilitate and support it, because, we've all got to make a success of this, right? We've got to make the best success of the hand that we have.
I say to people, which is the most successful city in the UK? London. Which is the most diverse city in the UK? London. Have you noticed any connection between these two things? Creativity increases with diversity and declines with sameness. And I'm going to keep repeating this until people start to listen. It's the creative diversity of London that drives its success. And that's true in financial services, it's true in technology, it's true in creative businesses like music and advertising and so on. It's true across the board. It's interesting looking at the American election at the same time. Immigration has driven economic growth in the United States for 200 years.
I think organisations need to really let their values come through about how they feel about openness and inclusiveness as an organisation. I think some are quite nervous about how to do that in a way that recognises that potentially half of their employees or more voted for Brexit.
It's a challenging time. So thank you all for participating. Thank you very much to the panel for sharing their expertise. And hopefully we will welcome you back to the FT for similar events in the future.
I was very interested to hear about the impacts of Brexit in the capacity of London and the UK to retain talent and to get more talent.
I thought it was great discussion as a starting point to kind of light the fire a little bit underneath the HR community, take some action and start to think a little bit about how they can help their organisations deal with some of the dynamics that Brexit will undoubtedly bring.
But I think the main thing is that there are things that you can actually start doing now that HR leaders can begin to get on the front foot with.
I thought there was a really nice mix of practical hands-on examples and slightly more abstract and background, but very important factors.
For me, some of the sort of personal stories of people who are here as EU citizens and their family situations, is just some of that personal consequences of Brexit coming through were fascinating.